Number 5 on this list is the rise of artificial intelligence. The moon in the full of night over the high mountain, the new sage with a lone brain sees it. By his disciples invited to be immortal, eyes to the south. Hands in bosoms, bodies in the fire. That was a poem from the one and only Nostradamus. Probably the most famous prophesizer of all time, if that's even a thing. Nostradamus was a French astrologer and seer and is most known for his work called the Prophecies, where he pops the heck off and prophesizes pretty much the entire world's future. This poetic quatrain that I read is from that book, and people believe it to be in reference to artificial intelligence taking over. Right now, AI is definitely the craze. Pretty much any billionaire who's anybody is currently investing insane amounts of money into AI, thinking it'll be the way of the future. At the same time though, a lot of them are coming out and warning us about how dangerous this could be when AI is able to get consciousness. Well, in this poem, Nostradamus says the new sage with a lone brain sees it, and people think that's in reference to AI getting consciousness. This is the new sage and it can only know. Then he goes on to say that there are bodies in the fire and all that jazz, and that just really doesn't sound like a fun time at all. Experts still think that we're a ways away from getting AI to reach full consciousness, but they're pretty much all in agreement that it's going to happen one day. They're also pretty much in agreement that computers and robots will be smarter than humans because they can just take in more information and process data way quicker than we would ever be able to. Comment down below when you think AI is going to start causing serious problems for humans. Is it in 2022, or do we still have a bit more time left? Number 4 on this list is the Rapture. The Rapture is another one of those doomsday predictions that's been thrown around for what seems like ever. According to Wikipedia, the Rapture is an eschatological theological position held by some Christians, particularly within branches of American evangelicalism, consisting of an end-time event when all Christian believers who are alive, along with resurrected believers, would rise in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. Basically what this means is that for those devout Christian followers, life is going to get pretty awesome, but for everyone else, life on Earth is going to suck. People have speculated that the Earth would turn into a hell-like place where demons roam the streets. As you can probably imagine, this would be pretty bad and wouldn't be the greatest existence ever. The Rapture has been discussed as a possibility for years now, but the most recent claim has it pegged for 2028. Granted, this is always changing, and it feels like at any given year, someone is prophesizing that the Rapture could be coming. At this rate, it feels like it could come tomorrow, but nobody really knows. If the Rapture was to happen though, no reason to think that 2022 couldn't be the year. Number 3 is an asteroid. Now, an asteroid hitting Earth has been talked about as a potential doomsday world-ending scenario for pretty much as long as we've been aware of asteroids. We've talked a lot about this on this channel before, and depending on the size of asteroid, the entire planet could be totally wiped out. In fact, this has gotten some more attention in pop culture recently with the movie Don't Look Up. Starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence, the whole movie is about a massive asteroid coming to Earth and potentially killing all of us if it hits. Well, according to the Messiah Foundation International, we only have a few years left before this becomes a sad and terrifying reality. 2026 is the year to mark on the calendar, folks, only 4 years from now. Riaz Ahmad Gohar Shadi was a spiritual leader who's credited with starting up the Messiah Foundation International. He wrote a book called The Religion of God, and in that book he's predicted 2026 as being the year the world is going to get hit with a massive celestial object. This object would be big enough to destroy the whole planet and all life on Earth. Now, I looked into this prophecy, and from what I found, I think we should be okay. Most experts who study space think that we have quite some time before we need to start worrying about such things. The closest thing that we're currently aware of is an asteroid called 2010 RF12. This is apparently the asteroid with the highest probability of hitting Earth, with about a 5% chance of doing so. However, this also isn't supposed to occur until 2095, giving us plenty of time to prepare. Now, I'm gonna be honest, who really knows with this stuff? Space is pretty crazy and we're learning new things every day. Maybe there is an asteroid we're unaware of, or that scientists haven't revealed to the public that's coming to Earth, and for that reason I suppose that this prophecy might happen. But if it does, then at least we still have 4 years to plan for it, and hopefully we'll just avoid it altogether. Number 2 on this list is World War III. This is something that hasn't just been prophesized by one person, but by multiple. However, if we did want to put this on one guy, then our main man Nostradamus is back at it again because he's been noted as predicting a third world war in 2022. A great article by the Daily Record talks about this possibility when they write, "There are serious concerns over a possible global war in the coming year, and one possible cause could be the ongoing tensions between China and Taiwan. The incursions from nuclear-capable Chinese warplanes has ratcheted up tensions over the tiny US-backed island. Relations between the two nations are at the worst in 40 years, Taiwan's defense minister said at the end of last year. Western allies of Taiwan have expressed their concern at China's open display of military might, and it's widely feared any form of armed confrontation could quickly escalate into a global conflict. Meanwhile, Russia has reportedly approved plans for urgent mass graves amid fears a war could break out after an invasion of Ukraine. Russian outlet MK say that the burial sites were constructed as a priority after they allegedly appeared on leaked legal documents that are expected to come into force on February 1st. Those are just some of the possible scenarios where something major could start, but there are also tons of other areas in the world in disarray right now where I could see something horrible taking place. All it would require is a few frustrated people deciding to push the button, and then bam, we're at a place of no return and might damage our planet beyond repair. Hopefully all of this won't come to fruition, and those who have the power to send us into war will exercise their power to also keep us out of it. Number 1 on this list is a lethal virus. Known as the Nostradamus of the Balkans, the blind mystic Baba Vanga has some very scary things coming in 2022 for humans. One of the worst ones, and probably most triggering at this point, is a massive lethal virus attacking Earth. After several years of being in a pandemic, I think it's safe to say that humans are pretty tired of lethal diseases. Baba Vanga isn't holding back on us though, and she expects this one to be really bad. It's apparently going to come from Siberia and will all start due to global warming. Now this honestly might not be that far off at all, which makes it that much more scarier. Guarantee BBVA writes, in August 2016, in a remote corner of Siberian tundra called the Yamal Peninsula in the Arctic Circle, an individual died and at least 20 people were hospitalized after being infected by anthrax. The theory is that over 75 years ago, a reindeer infected with anthrax died and its frozen carcass became trapped under a layer of frozen soil known as permafrost. There it stayed until a heat wave in the summer of 2016 when the permafrost thawed. This exposed the reindeer corpse and released infectious anthrax into nearby water and soil and then into the food supply. More than 2,000 reindeer grazing nearby became infected, which then led to the small number of human cases. The fear is that this will not be an isolated case. As the Earth warms, more permafrost will melt. Under normal circumstances, superficial permafrost layers about 50 centimeters deep melt every summer. But now global warming is gradually exposing older permafrost layers. Frozen permafrost soil is the perfect place for bacteria to remain alive for very long periods of time, perhaps as long as 1,000,000 years. That means melting ice could potentially open up a Pandora's box of diseases. So Baba Vanga might sadly be onto something here, and that could just be horrible. There could be diseases that are frozen that we just don't know anything about and might absolutely ravage the population. Honestly guys, we just need to pray that our immunities can hold up if something like this did ever happen. Number 5 on this list is the Great Flood. Johann Stauffer, a respected German mathematician and astrologer, predicted that a great flood would cover the world on February 25th, 1524, when all of the known planets would be in alignment under Pisces, a water sign. Hundreds of pamphlets announcing the coming flood were issued and set in motion a general panic. Count von Igleheim, a German nobleman, went so far as to build a 3-story ark. Though there was a light rain on the day of the predicted flood, no actual flooding materialized. So that was an entry from Britannica talking about world-ending scenarios that didn't pan out. Our man Johann definitely missed the mark on this one and was proven incorrect, but maybe he just got the dates wrong. Potentially, he was just 500 years too early. Fast forward 500 years to present day, and we are now on the verge of potentially a great flood again. The world is heating up and the ice caps are melting faster than they ever have. 1.2 trillion tons. That is how much ice is melting every single day, and the number continues to increase. Ever visited the island nation of Tuvalu? Well, if you haven't, then you'd better go soon, because before long, it won't exist anymore. It's currently getting flooded by rising sea levels, and there's an evacuation in order to move all the citizens to New Zealand. This flooding won't just happen to Pacific Island nations either, but it's coming for all of us. Here's a map of North America if all the ice melted in the world. There are a lot of major cities on that map that are now totally underwater. This is going to happen worldwide and will have millions, maybe even billions of people out of their homes with nowhere to live. The fallout would be absolutely catastrophic and could cause the end of the world. Number 4 on this list is a water shortage. So we actually just talked about how there might be too much water, but what about the total opposite of that? Not enough. Well, Baba Vanga is back once again to say that she believes 2022 is the year that the world deals with its most detrimental water shortages yet. When I say water shortages in this context, I'm not referring to ocean water, I'm referring to drinking water and the lack of it. Already there are many countries in the world that suffer from a lack of clean drinking water. Something that a lot of us take for granted these days is an everyday struggle for those living on the opposite side of the world. Sadly, Baba Vanga thinks it's only going to get worse. What does a lack of drinking water mean? Well, it means that a lot of people are going to die. Already millions die annually from a lack of drinking water, and that number will continue to rise if water goes out completely. Similar to a later entry that we're going to discuss, if there is truly a water shortage across the globe, then people are going to start fighting over it. Water will now become the new currency and everyone is going to want it. We can't just manufacture water out of thin air for billions of people, so those that have water will become extremely powerful. Humans need a few important things for overall survival. Air, water, and food are the 3 most important. Take out one of those 3 things and I could see a world-ending scenario arising very quickly. Number 3 on this list is the Malthusian theory. Now, I've actually talked about this theory before in a similar video, but I think I need to bring it up in this video as well. Malthusianism, as defined by Wikipedia, is the idea that population growth is potentially exponential, while the growth of the food supply or other resources is linear, which eventually reduces living standards to the point of triggering a population die-off. This theory was by Thomas Robert Malthus and was proposed several hundred years ago. If we think about it, then it does make a decent amount of sense. Eventually, there will simply be too many humans on the earth for us to grow food for all of those humans. Now, one thing Malthus didn't account for is human innovation, and the fact that we're constantly progressing technology. In fact, I think based on our current population, he would have believed this theory to have already taken hold, but due to human innovation and our advanced food growing technology, it hasn't. That being said, there's certainly still time. With the world population very close to touching 8 billion people and it's still rising, we're getting into dangerous territory when it comes to the Malthusian theory. Already, it's believed that close to 1 billion people suffer from serious famine every single day. The more people that we bring into this world, the more that number will rise. Soon, we could get to a place where food and the ability to grow food is so valuable that it almost turns into its own currency. This might not end the world immediately, but it could cause countries to start going to war over food with one another. Anarchy could fall upon the planet as humans grow hungry every single day. Here's to hoping that human innovation can stay ahead of the curve and keep everybody well fed. Number 2 on this list is painful, violent, and bloody business. Alright, so that's a bit of a weird title for an entry, but that's actually part of a quote from Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of Britain. In that quote, he's referencing Russia and their potential invasion of Ukraine. If you guys were unfamiliar, then right now there is a very real and very serious threat that the Russians attempt to invade Ukraine. This is because recently they mobilized roughly 100,000 of their troops and put them at various points across the border to Ukraine. Other world leaders have seen this and are accusing Russia of planning an invasion, but Putin adamantly denies it, basically saying that he can move his troops wherever he likes in his own country. This may be true, but the writing is on the walls. Everybody knows that Russia wants to own Ukraine and haven't acknowledged their claim of being an independent country, believing they are simply an extension of Russia. It was only a few years prior that we saw Russia annex the Crimean Peninsula, and it seems like now they're hungry for more. This time, it would be far bloodier though. Boris Johnson and Joe Biden have both come out and warned Russia against doing such an action. Biden has come out and said that such an attack would change the world. This in itself is a prophecy emergency, and it isn't a good one. If Russia was to attack Ukraine, then the response from NATO would be swift and unforgiving. That means Russia is now fighting NATO, and if Russia is out here fighting NATO, you already know that other countries are going to get involved. China may want a piece of this action, and if I had to guess, they would probably take Russia's side, meaning that before we know it, we would end up in this massive conflict with some of the world's biggest powers. This is the closest that we've gotten to World War III in a long time. Painful, violent, and bloody business. These are the words that a world leader is using to describe what is to come if Russia invades Ukraine. A war involving the countries that I just said could escalate way too quickly and has serious world-ending or at least world-damaging potential. Fingers crossed everybody can chill the heck out and we don't need to go to war anytime soon. And finally, number 1 on this list is global warming. I really hate this one, guys. I truly hate how real this entry is, but it does need to be discussed. Our main man, Nostradamus, is back at it again with the predicts, and this time he really nailed it. Like the sun, the head will seal the shining sea. The live fish of the Black Sea will almost boil. That is part of a Nostradamus prediction discussing what is going to happen to our world and where the temperatures are headed. Basically, they aren't headed anywhere good. Here are a few scary stats from Earth.org. Within the next 2 decades, global temperatures are likely to rise 1.5 degrees Celsius. The last 7 years have been the warmest on record, and more than 1 million species are at risk of extinction by climate change. And guess what, friends? We are one of those 1 million species at risk. We've already talked about the potential of a great flood and all of that, but famine is going to become a major problem too. It's hard to grow crops on a good day, and try doing it when it gets way too hot. You can't. This is going to be devastating to some of the poor countries in the world and cause ripple effects that we don't even know about. I feel like I don't even really need to go down the rabbit hole of how bad global warming really is, because at this point we've most likely heard it all 1,000,000 times over. I for one am pretty sick of hearing about it and would love for the world to collectively change their ways so that I no longer need to include such entries on lists like this. Let's just hope that we can figure it out and don't prove our guy Nostradamus, the prophet of doom, correct.
Number 5. One of the earliest on Baba's prediction list is that by 2023, Earth will have shifted sufficiently enough to alter its orbit. Now, we don't fully know what she means by that, but I can tell you that if Earth's orbit were to change at all, the consequences would be absolutely disastrous. I'm not entirely sure how Earth is supposed to shift orbit. Maybe we're all going to get too heavy, we'll throw the gravity off, maybe we're jumping around too much. Anyway, the universe works in a very specific way. It's very finely crafted. Everything is exactly where it should be. And if that balance gets thrown off, it'll affect, well, just about everything. The Earth shifting its orbit would immediately result in increased temperatures, soaking the world in radiation. Increased temperatures would lead to glaciers melting, sea levels rising, and that usually leads into chaos across the globe. Of course, if we shifted off our orbit, it wouldn't stop there. We'd also experience a new ice age and crushing periods of extended darkness, which would spell disaster in ways we couldn't even comprehend on the ecosystems. And most worrisome of all, we would basically give vampires a key to the Earth. I have to assume that our position in the solar system is the only thing preventing them from taking over right now. Like I mentioned, this is supposedly supposed to occur in 2023, so luckily we can find out really soon if this one is coming true, and for all of our sakes, I sincerely hope not. Number 4. Another claim for 2023 is that we will experience the end of natural live births altogether. Vanga claimed that going forward, all birthing will be done in laboratories. World leaders will decree what the people of each nation should look like, and they will be able to finely tune their physical and appearances like we're all characters in The Sims. Well, that actually might be kind of fun. Do you think we'll be able to do that after we've already been born? Wouldn't mind customizing myself up a little bit, tighten up the jaw, add a couple cool scars, maybe one over the eye like Geralt. This one is definitely a bit out there compared to some of the other ones on the list, but there is some truth to the words. The birth rate is declining right now. In 1950, the birth rate was 36.9% per 1,000 people, while now it's only 18.5%. And some analysts predict by 2050 it could dip as low as 14.6%. So maybe in the future we will start to see more of a push towards this kind of thing, lab birth and all that. That bit about world leaders deciding what their people look like though, I don't know about that. I feel like people would disagree with that. What if the current leader only wants children that look like Danny DeVito? You're really gonna wait 9 months for a Danny DeVito baby? A whole society of DeVitos run it? No, actually, the more I'm talking about this, I want this. This is a prediction I hope comes true. Number 3. Another of her predictions say that by the year 2046, technology will have advanced sufficiently enough that the average life expectancy will raise past 100 due to rises in organ transplant technology and prosthetic and cybernetic implants. Now that is something I can really get into. I have been wanting cybernetic everything since I saw Luke get that sweet robot hand in Star Wars. This technology has been advancing with every year, with the stuff of former sci-fi legend becoming more and more practical and real. The prediction goes on to state that in the near future, organs will be grown and sold like any other product, developed en masse and distributed internationally. The ramifications of that would be unbelievable. Imagine for a minute how many illnesses and diseases would just disappear overnight if you were able to order a new kidney on Amazon and have it delivered to your house the next day. While we're not quite at the level where we're 3D printing lungs and shipping them out, scientists have actually been experimenting with growing human organs in labs, with liver buds being grown from human stem cells. Now the technology is still pretty far off, with these little mini organoids lacking key features that real organs do, like, growing, mostly being used to study for now, but in some cases, these lab-grown organs have actually been transplanted into mice successfully. So who's to say what progress will look like in the next 10 years' time? Well, Baba Vanga, I guess, she's the one to say, that's why we're doing this. Number 2. Another of Baba's predictions is that the world will experience something called a solar tsunami. And if the name isn't enough of an indicator, it really does not sound that pleasant. So if you are picturing a delightful wave of summer sun, why don't you keep thinking that? A solar storm is a burst of energy from the sun which sends electrical charges, magnetic fields, and radiation towards the Earth. This effect is what creates the northern lights, which are very pretty, but the solar tsunami Vanga predicted would be one of cataclysmic proportions, claiming that it would be powerful as billions upon billions of nuclear weapons descending on the Earth. Solar storms are predicted to cause mass damage to technology, causing worldwide blackouts, with some doomsayers going so far as to say that it could cause a worldwide technological shutdown, sending humanity back to the Dark Ages. Might be the first thing to get me off my phone for 5 minutes, so maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing. This kind of thing does occur already on a much smaller scale, with some smaller solar waves causing radio blackouts, but luckily, nothing on a massive scale of a full-blown solar tsunami has occurred yet. Baba Vanga never gave a time or a date for when she thought the solar tsunami would occur, just that it was on the horizon for humanity, and we should be expecting it, I guess, sometime. So I guess keep checking the weather app, and if it shuts down while you're checking it, and all the lights turn off in your house, yeah, that's probably a bad sign. Maybe, I don't know, get into the bunker, stock up on tuna and beans. Number 1. I know, we just did a virus. Well, keep the masks around maybe. Because before her passing, Baba Vanga predicted that due to climate change melting the ice around the world, a new virus would be discovered in Siberia and the world would experience another pandemic. I don't know, a sequel that's similar to the first? I feel like it's been done before, kinda played out. Well, in July 2021, a team of researchers discovered within 2 samples of ice from the Tibetan Plateau that contained ancient viruses, locked away and preserved in the virus like the mosquito from Jurassic Park in the amber. According to the analysts, these ice samples were at least 15,000 years old. The researchers also discovered embedded within the ice samples were 33 viral genetic codes. While 4 of the codes were recognized viruses that usually attack bacteria, the remaining 28 genetic codes were novel, meaning that this is the first time they've been discovered, like a time capsule just full of stuff to make you cough. Number 5 on our list for scary predictions from the Princess of Prognostication for 2023 is a nuclear meltdown. Vanga predicted that soon another nuclear meltdown will occur at a currently unnamed nuclear power plant that will explode. Now, followers of Vanga have cited Chernobyl as proof of the oracle's soothsaying, believing that she predicted it years before it occurred. Now, if you need anyone to spell out just how bad a nuclear meltdown would be, luckily, and I use that term extremely lightly, we have Chernobyl as a harrowing monument to the dangers of untethered nuclear power. Chernobyl, if you don't know from not having seen the HBO TV show or the Call of Duty 4 level, which is where I get most of my information about world issues and politics, was a nuclear power plant outside of Pripyat that experienced a horrific meltdown. When Chernobyl's reactor burst, the blast was equivalent to the force of 500 nuclear explosions explosions. Now, 1 is already just about the worst thing that could ever possibly happen. 2 is pretty bad. 500 is inconceivable. So I don't think anyone among us wants another one. There is obviously some worry with current conflicts over Europe that this could be what Baba Vanga is predicting. Outside forces and damage could trigger a chain reaction that leads to severe, long-lasting consequences. Chernobyl still isn't habitable by humans, and scientists estimate it won't be for the next 20,000 years. Which is a shame because honestly it does look like it could be a cool place to live. The sites are pretty cool. We can't afford another Chernobyl anywhere in the world with everything going on. In 1967 as well, Baba Vanga predicted that you would watch this video and give us a subscribe. It is just astonishing how well she was able to predict the future. Number 4, bioweaponry. I think we've all lived through enough biological disasters for one lifetime, right? I'm gonna spend the rest of my life with a bottle of hand sanitizer near me. Well, Vanga warns us that there could still be more on the horizon. One of her predictions for the near future is that she has prophesied that an unnamed big country will carry out bioweaponry research on human beings. She theorized that hundreds of thousands of people will be affected by these sinister experiments and that it could leak out into the rest of the world. Now, again, this goes without saying, but biological weaponry is banned worldwide. It's one of those things that really gets you into trouble. I mean, in 8th grade, I threw a booger at a girl and I was charged by the United Nations for biological warfare. The United Nations effectively bans any experiments or any conduct, such as stockpiling viruses and dangerous bacteria, but, you know, let's be honest, the UN says a lot of things and that doesn't stop everybody. There are some who theorize that bioweaponry is already being researched across the globe secretly. Things like weaponized viruses or chemical warfare, all very illegal, all very scary. I have played way too many of the Resident Evil games in my lifetime to not be terrified of bioweaponry. We've touched a bit on this subject on previous videos about Baba Vanga, but Baba Vanga predicted as well in 2022 that we would experience a new virus and a new pandemic. Recently, in 2021, researchers in Siberia uncovered 33 strains of novel viruses encased perfectly in ice, samples over 15,000 years old. Could this be what Vanga is referring to here? Personally, I think a secret organization making a bioweapon out of generations old viruses sounds way too much like the plot to a scary horror movie or video game than it does real life, so I'm very much hoping that Baba Vanga was wrong about this one. I mean, she's not always right, you know? You need a couple of them to be wrong to make the real ones stick out all the more. Number 3, virtual reality takeover. Hey, what's your favorite reality? Mine is occasionally this one, although I am pretty partial to some synthetic realities as well. It definitely seems like over the last few years I've spent more time inside digital worlds than I have paying attention to the world around me. I mean, can you blame me? Someone had to collect all those Korok seeds. Well, according to Baba Vanga, maybe we're all going to be spending a lot more time hooked up into our digital worlds. Vanga predicts that humanity is going to start absorbing itself into a virtual world. She said in 2022, people would spend more time online and in screens more than ever. Typical grandmother. It's hard to tell her she's wrong though. I mean, you're on a screen right now and I'm talking into a screen right now. We've seen the world become more online than ever in the past few years. Baba Vanga, you would have absolutely loved Black Mirror. They made like 5 seasons of that show. It was basically all about this. You don't really need to be a blind mystic with a gift for prophecy to predict that virtual reality is coming. I mean, Meta has made no secret about how they believe the metaverse to be the next greatest leap in human advancement. Although, if you want my advice, I think the visuals still need a little tweaking because I'm not sure that I want to leave behind all the beauty of the real human experience just to go live in a simulated reality where everything looks like I'm trapped in the loading screen for Wii Sports Bowling forever. Investors and tech startups are racing to be the one to perfect the metaverse. And I do think we'll get there eventually, 2007 graphics notwithstanding. Once we've plundered this beautiful world for all its natural resources and drained the seas and stars, I think we'll all come aboard Mark Zuckerberg's cold, desolate ark and live hooked up into the machine spirit. I'm very optimistic about the future, if you couldn't tell that. Number 2, water scarcity. What is the most important resource humanity has? Cadbury cream eggs? No. It's water, of course. As much as we think of water as an infinitely replenishing resource, we're running out of it faster than any of us would ever care to admit. Only 3% of all water on the world world is fresh water, and 2/3 of that water is tucked away in frozen glaciers. The World Wildlife Foundation dictates that somewhere around 2.7 billion people find water scarce for at least 1 month of the year. Baba Vanga predicted that by 2022, the world would experience a global drought, leading to water shortages internationally. I mean, without it, we're nothing. And unless we all want to start wearing still suits like Dune, drinking our urine and sweat, we should probably try and do something about it, you know? Something on a big global scale maybe, not just paper straws. Countries across the world are already experiencing shortages. It goes hand in hand with the rising temperatures seen globally, with temperatures in Europe nearing towards 50 degrees. The UK this year experienced one of its hottest summers it had ever seen, and this year our July was the 6th hottest July on record. Like ever. Like since they started writing down information about how hot it was. This is one of those times where being really high up on a hottest list is not actually a good thing. Now, much like most people, I absolutely loved Mad Max Fury Road. But I think the parts that I thought were really cool were the cool cars and the leather jackets and punching guys in the sand, and not the part where post-apocalyptic tyrant warlords control the world by hoarding what limited water exists and oppressing the downtrodden. So I'd like to avoid that if we can. Also, I can't drive, so I don't really know how long I would last in the wasteland. Number 1, alien invasion. Our number 1 spot is also Vanga's most out there prediction, like out of this world out there. In 2022, Baba Vanga claims that an alien life is going to arrive on Earth traveling on an asteroid called Oumuamua to scope out the situation here. The name is Hawaiian in origin, meaning a messenger from afar arriving first. Kind of feel like if there was ever an asteroid that would very likely contain an envoy of visitors from another planet, it would have to be that one. I mean, listen to that name. Now this asteroid is real, and it is an object from another solar system altogether, passing through for an intergalactic sightseeing tour. Now, not to burst your bubble too much, but this asteroid actually has already passed through Earth's orbit back in 2017, but I guess they didn't see anything too worthwhile yet. You know what, aliens, I gotta say, this isn't really the best time for us to have company right now over. As I've listed off in this video, we're kind of dealing with some problems right now. We're still kind of cleaning up a little bit, you know. Give us some notice. We just need to clean out the cupboards, fix a few of our global catastrophes, end all conflicts, get everybody to be friends, and then we can have you guys over. Recently, NASA just deflected an asteroid in a historic moment, successfully deflecting an asteroid's course. Probably a huge flex to the aliens, letting them know straight up, hey, if you guys want to swing by on an asteroid and we're not feeling it, we can just push you out of the way with an interplanetary do not disturb sign. But don't feel too threatened about that, please, aliens. We were just trying out our new asteroid deflecting software. We're not the most friendly species, but if you guys want to come check out what we're doing, we can meet in the middle somewhere, maybe on some neutral ground. Maybe the moon. We put a flag up there, but I promise that's not ours. You know, we can just share that.